What's up everyone, welcome again. I hope you are doing well. In this tutorial, I will show you how I recreated or at least tried to recreate this image in Cinema 4D. This is the target one and the one on the right is the render that we're gonna get at the end of the tutorial. Throughout the tutorial, I tried to do things as simple as possible, hopefully which will make it easier for you to follow me up. Every material, every light, every setting is going to be really easy and simple. I hope you will like the tutorial. If you have any questions, just let me know. Also, before getting into the tutorial, you can join the Discord group. You can find the link below. Now, let's get into the tutorial. Firstly, let's bring the image plane to the front view. I will click on my middle mouse, go to front view, hit Shift and V, back. I will select this image, increase up the transparency. Now we are good to go. As a first step, I want to model the background, and I'm going to do that with two splines. So first, let's add this one in, change the position and size. Then I'm going to make this circle editable. Then I will come down to the options of this circle and turn this off. Then I will hit R and rotate this spline 90 degrees so that I could grab that point, hit hold down Control and move that point down to the point that we are not going to see it anymore. Then I will select that point with rectangle selection tool, delete that point. Now it's time to bring in the second circle, or you can simply duplicate the spline, hold down Control, then rotate this 180 degrees. This time though, I need to scale that down. Then I will select these two splines, right click, click on Connect Objects and delete. Now I will select that point, hold down Control to extrude it. Once I have done that, I will select the points of the second spline, then enable Axis Mode, hit E, Move tool and click on that point. I will turn off Axis Mode and enable Snap Mode so that I could move the axis on that point. Now these two objects will be perfectly matched. We need to merge these points though. If I go to the 3D view, it says we have 2 points. To merge them, I will select them, right click, weld tool and weld these points. It's going to be that easy. Now let's move that point all the way up. But this is not going to be enough. To extrude that spline, it should be a closed spline. So to do that, I will hold down Control, extrude that point 3 times. And finally, I will grab these two and weld them one more time for the last time. Now this spline could be extruded, but before moving forward, I want to select these points, right click and click on Art Interpolation. Now we can drop this one into an extrude object. So I will hold down Alt and click on Extrude. I will come over to the caps and first thing first, I will change my shape to step. I will increase up the size. Let's go to the front view. It seems like we are gonna need 4 steps and change the size to somewhere around 77 centimeters. Once I have done that, I will go back to the 3D view and play around with the settings. First, let's open up the offset and change this. Or maybe we should first go to the object and change the depth of this extrusion. Okay, that seems fine. I will hit NNB to see the wireframes because I need to increase up the resolution of this spline. So select the spline, then come over to the number and increase that up. It's going to be that easy. So somewhere around, I don't know, 36 is going to be enough. Also, I want to keep these sharp edges. I don't want this object to be really smooth because this is basically a paper and these kind of hard edges will create the illusion of a real paper, kinda, if you buy it. Okay, next up, we need to bevel these sharp edges. So I will drop in a bevel deformer right below the spline. We want something quite small. So I will set this to 0.2 because this is going to be a paper. We need to get rid of this bad shading. To fix that problem, I will select the font tag of the extrude object, set this to square area weighted, then increase up the angle. I think we can increase up the offset to 0.5, and maybe we can lower down the offset. Everything is looking fine now. It is time to bring in a plane, change the orientation, scale it up, move it on the Z. Okay, our background is ready. Now it is time for the models. I will use a model that I previously modeled in one of my projects, so I will just use it. I will hit Ctrl C, come over to my file that I have been working on, then I will hit Ctrl V, go to the front view, let's hit NNG, then I will scale that model up until it matches this model on the left. Once I have done that, instead of creating a duplicate, I will use an instance. So whatever I do to this object will be applied to the instance of this object. So I will select the subdivision surface, or let's call this model sub D original. I will come over this section. You don't need to hold on anything, just click on the instance. This will create an instance of the original object or group. Then I will move this to the side. I will go back to the original one and rotate it 180 degrees. Then I will grab this one. I will do the same. It seems like they are right on the surface. Next up, I will scale everything to real-world sizes. This is quite important when it comes to rendering. I believe this approach gives the most accurate and most realistic results. So as a reference, I will add in a cube, and approximately the height of this bottle should be around, say, 15 centimeters. Once I have adjusted the size of this cube, I will select everything, group them, then scale down everything until that bottle fits in that cube. So I will go to the front view, scale everything down. It doesn't have to be perfect. Now I can delete that cube. Now we can get into render stuff. So I will open up my settings. I will set this to Octane. Let's adjust the resolution. I believe this image is quite vertical, so let's try to reverse this. 720 to 1280. Let's close this. Let's create a cam. I want something narrow, so I will set this to 85. Then I will reset out the rotation and position. I will go to the right view and move this cam. Now it is time to bring in PureRef because I don't want to go to the front view whenever I need to see the reference. By the way, speaking of that, let's get rid of the image plane. I just needed this image plane to place these objects. I am done with this image texture. So Shift and V back and simply disable show picture. Now I have my reference on the left. Let's adjust this cam. I will reset the X. We could zoom in just a little bit more. Let's open up Octane Library window. First thing first, I will change the render settings, and I always set this to path tracing. Then I usually lower down this to something reasonable. Then I'm done with the settings. It's gonna be that easy. Snap this to the right, which means that I need to find a room for the reference. So I'm thinking about here. Okay, now let's hit render. I will lock the resolution. As you can tell from the render, something is casting light on the objects. Even though I have nothing related to any light source, there is something in the scene, and it is the default Octane environment, which you can find it under settings and environments. This one. I like this option, but to have more control over these environments, I usually set this to black. First, let me hit render again. So when I set this to pure black, nothing will be visible as expected because there is no light source anymore. So to get the same look with more adjustability, I will add in an Octane environment, and I will select this option, which will put an RGB spectrum, and I will be able to control the color of this sky environment. It is the same thing, but as I said, I will have more control over the environment. Now we can add the real light source. As you can tell from the reference, it is somewhere around the right side, and it seems like it is an area light. So let's come over to the objects, lights, area lights. I will also go to the right view and set this to perspective. It's NNA, or maybe we can set this to quick shading. I set this to perspective so that I could work in that view without changing the camera angle. Okay, so we have our light. I will move it here. Then let's move it to the right. Rotate it. It seems like it's too strong, so I will set this to 25, maybe 10. Now it is all about matching the shadows. I will move this up. And that seems to be okay to me. Obviously, we are going to make more adjustments as we go, but as a starting point, this is just looking perfect. A quick note about lights and shadows. If you want softer and more diffused shadows, you need to increase up the size of your light source. So if I set this to 500 and lower down the intensity, you will see what I am talking about. But for me, these settings are looking just perfect. As I said, I will adjust these lights and shadows as I go, but for now we are looking fine. Next up, the first material. I will come over to the materials, create a diffuse material because I will use this one for the paper part. I'm gonna call this paper and assign this to the extrude and to the plane. Then I will open up the node editor. I will basically add in a paper texture, which is going to be this one. Then I will link this texture to the diffuse channel of the material. As you can see, the size of this texture is extremely large, and since I applied this material on two different objects, the sizes of the texture don't match at all. So I will delete these materials and group these, Alt G. Then I will assign this material to the null. I can call this paper. As you can tell, nothing has changed because this material is trying to project this texture onto the current UVs of the objects below. So to get rid of the UVs, I will select my material and set this to cubic. This is going to give us a uniform size. Now I could enable texture mode and scale this texture. As you can tell, the background material, this paper texture, is too dark. So let's open up the node editor, grab the texture and lower down the gamma. This is not the best method to brighten up your textures, but it just works, so I will be okay with that. You could also use a texture to make this material a little interesting. First, I will add in a gradient node. Then I will link this to the gradient. Then I will link that gradient to the bump. It is too strong, obviously. So to lower down the intensity of the bump, I will select this white color and make it basically darker. It might be hard for you to see, so I will zoom in and render that region only. Okay, you can see the texture, and it is looking quite nice. Let's move on to the next material. Materials, create. This time I will create a glossy material because it will have some reflections on it. And I will call this black plastic. And as you can guess, I will put this one on the lid. So drop this one on the lid or on the head. Render. Nothing is visible. Actually, I will change the color first, obviously. Let's set this to black. And the roughness should be around 0.4 or 0.3. I think we need to duplicate this one on the base. Yes. But something is off, obviously. I think, yeah, it is because of the clay mod. I will turn this off. And here we go. Let me change this to pure black. Assign this again. As you can see, I am trying to get these materials as rough as possible. I will not try to do everything at once. So this is going to be more than enough. Now the third material. Sorry, not Cinema 4D, but an Octane material we are going to need. So materials, create. This time I will select specular material because this will be on the glass. So let's put it on. You can see the advantage of working with instances. Everything you do on these objects will be applied to the duplicate of this one. So let's open up the material. I am having a hard time to find enough room for these guys. Anyway, so the first thing first, obviously, we need to play around with the roughness of this material. So I will come over to the roughness, set this to 0.2 or 0.3. Since this is a glass material, it's gonna take longer time to render, so I will just render this region. This is looking quite well. To judge the render more effectively, we need to create a material for the liquid part. So materials, I will just drop this one on the liquid straight up. Let me zoom in. Pretty good result if you ask me, but we need to make some adjustments, obviously. But as I said, I will not try to get everything at once. I want to go slowly. Next up, the labels. So before recording this tutorial, I prepared these labels, quite simple ones. Now I will create a new material, Octane material, materials, create a diffuse material. I will call this front label, open it up, because I will add this texture in, this one. Then I will pipe this one into the diffuse. Once I have done that, I will close this and put this new material on the glass. It's gonna override everything, but we are gonna fix that in a few seconds. First, I want to adjust the placement of this texture. I will be using the projection method to apply these textures to the materials or the bottles. So first, select this new material, then set its projection to flat. Then I will enable texture mode. Then I will just scale that texture down. And apparently we need to rotate it 180 degrees. This is an easy and fast method to apply quick textures to your materials. It may not be the best method or most proper method, but it's going to be really, really fast. Okay, looking nice. Now I will open up the material again because we need to mask this texture out. And I will do this with a simple node called gradient. I will add this one in, then I will connect this texture to the gradient, then I will link the gradient to the opacity. It is looking nice actually, a nice effect, but we don't want that. So that's why I added these gradients. I will just right click on one of these colors and click on invert gradient. Now it is gonna mask out the whites in the texture. Select the material. By the way, you need to re-render the scene in order to see the effect of this opacity. Now let me select this group, sub group for the bottle and rotate this. You will see that since this is a projection, it is mirrored on the other side of the bottle. But this is not exactly what we want. We want to apply this texture only on the front part. So to do that, I will select my object, select these polygons specifically where I want to put this texture on. Select all of these. Then I will come over to the selection and select store selection. Once I have done that, I will select the second material and put this selection into the selection tab. Now it's going to only affect the front. Now the other label, which we are going to put on the back, I will hold down Control, duplicate this and call this back label. Open it up and replace the texture. I will put this one on the glass again. I will set this to flat. Going to texture mode, scale that down. I will rotate the bottle and select these polygons only. Then selection, store selection, select the third material and put this new selection into the selection. Now if I rotate this back, I should not see it on the front. Yes, perfect. What is good? Everything I did on the original bottle will be applied to the instance. As I said, this might not be the best method to apply textures or levels to your objects, but this is quite a fast one, especially if you are going to stay in Cinema 4D. But when you want to export these out to other application, these selections will probably cause problems. So depending on your pipeline, you can follow different methods. But in this one, I just wanted to show you guys that you can quickly apply this kind of textures to your objects that way. Now I think it is time to work more on the materials. And the first material we are going to work on is this glass one. Let's open this up. I will zoom in and I will only render that region. By the way, you may see a border around the selection. If you see it, just re-render the scene. It's gonna fix the problem. I will come over to the medium and add in scattering. Yes, this is what I was talking about. If you see that border, just re-render the scene. Nice. Now I will just render that region, open up scattering, and to see it a little bit better, I will come over here and add in an RGB spectrum and change the color to something like red. Let's go back. And what I'm going to do is quite easy. I will just lower that down to something like 3. Yeah, you can see the effect we are getting from the scattering. If you want something subtle, just lower that down, but something around 2 is going to be okay for me. By the way, whenever you change the density, you need to re-render it. Maybe 5%. It is something subtle, but it's gonna make a difference. By the way, I am not that technical about this kind of stuff. I'm trying to approach from an artistic view. I mean, if it does look good, I will be okay. Now let me remove that color and re-render the scene. Let me match this. Okay, I just noticed that we need to change the index, I guess, because like the inside part of this bottle kind of fades out. So if I increase that up, I might get the same look. So let's just render that region. Yeah, now looks just a little bit better. Also, we could scale down the liquid part, going to model mode. Now this looks much better. Now I will turn this off, set this to 1. Now I will try to match these two images as much as possible. So first thing first, I will add in an Octane cam so that I will be able to adjust the final render. Right now I have a standard Cinema 4D cam, but if you enable this cam and come over to the objects and click on Octane camera, it will create the same camera, but this time with an Octane camera tag. And this is exactly what we want. We can get rid of this cam. Now I will open up the imager, and also let me move that cam down. Now let's get back to the cam and enable imager. First thing I noticed is the shadows. The original one is quite darker. So I will come over to the gamma and bring that down to something like 0.5. Obviously, this is gonna affect everything in the scene, which means that I will increase up the exposure. Now, it is mostly overexposed, but we have a great tool for that one, and it's called highlight compression. Increase that up. I'm still not okay with these shadows. I think this might be because of the extrusion. So I will select this one, come over to the caps and increase up that offset. So the distances between the steps will be higher, which will give us more shadow, hopefully. So let's set this to 0.5. Let me only render this part. What about 1? Yeah, I, I think this time it's going to be more visible what I'm talking about. As I increase this up, I get basically more shadow or more defined shadows. I have a seam, I think it is coming from the paper material. So let's select this one, enable texture mode. Let me go back to perspective view, and I will basically move that down until this seam is gone. But it's not going to be an effective way because I will get the same seam on the top. So the only option is to scale this up. Also, the other thing is this line, the bottom part of the extrude is visible. We don't want that. So I will go into points mode and move these points down. Then I will select the instance and rotate it. First, I will go into object mode, Alt and Shift, and rotate this 180 degrees. I believe we still have some room for a little bit more exposure to mesh these up. So what happens if I set this to 3? Hmm. It becomes quite hard to see the difference. after looking at the same image for a long time. So I don't know, maybe we should increase that up to zero point 0.8. Yeah, that seems just a little bit better, I guess. The more I look at these two, the more similar they start to look. But overall, I am quite happy, especially with the material. If you zoom in here, we got a pretty good result. I don't like the way these labels look. To be honest, they look too sharp, too dark, you know. So let's break it down a little bit. I will open up the node editor and I will add in another gradient right on the connection. Then I will select the black color and make it lighter. That should fix the problem. We'll see. We need to update the render. Yeah, now it looks just a little bit better. Not that intense. Let's try 35 and re-render. Okay, this is too much, so we want something like 25. Let me apply the same gradient to the back level, open it up, gradient, drop this one on the connection. I will set this to 25. Let's re-render. Okay, let's only render this region and let's go crazy and set this to 3. Give it a few seconds. Since this is a glass material, it's gonna take a longer time to render it out. But 20 seconds will be enough for us to judge. Yeah, I like the way that this text is casting shadow on the bottle or on the liquid parts. Yeah, looking really nice. The paper part is also looking fine as well. While we are in this region, let's now work on the lid. I mean the material of it. I found a better image for the lid part, this one. So let's try to mesh this up. I will open up my material, open up the node editor. By the way, sorry for the messy layout. I'm trying to show everything in a single screen, so it might be a little challenging to me. So first thing first, the noisy part is the most distinctive part of this material, I believe. So let's get it first. I will type in noise, add this one in, then I will pipe this one into the bump. By the way, sorry, I will add in an Octane noise. It works just a little bit better with Octane. I will change the size. So I will click on UVW transform, then select this and simply bring that down. This bump, this noise, is also attributing to the roughness aspect of this material. So go to the roughness and remove all the roughness coming from the roughness channel. Once I have done that, I will go back to the noise. Then I will change the strength of this noise because it is too strong. Let's try 0.1. Still too strong, so 0.05 maybe, or 2. Yeah, 2 is looking quite nice. I think we need to scale that down just a little bit more. We can increase up the strength. Okay, that seems fine to me. Now let me zoom out and render the whole thing. Okay, the render is done. I just cranked up my max samples to 2K and that's all, and this is the final result. I know our version has not finished completely. We can still work on it, but for such a short time, I think we did a good and decent job. There is still room for adjustments, obviously, and you can do this in post-processing process like in Photoshop. But I'm really happy with the result. Throughout the tutorial, I tried to follow a simple approach. I don't know if you noticed, but while creating these materials and the scene, I didn't add crazy amount of details. I just didn't want to make the process too complicated. And you can see with such simple lights and materials, you can get really good results, especially with the Octane. So that's going to be it for the tutorial. I hope you liked it and learned something new. If you have any questions, just let me know anytime. You can always find me on Discord. You can find the link below. And I will see you in the next ones. Bye.